So one question that has come up consistently as I've stood in various bars around Indianapolis over the last 3 nights is people asking me, is it crazy for them to think about trading him? More on like a theoretical big picture level. I'll answer that first. I don't think it's crazy, and it's for this reason, okay? I think it's 2 or 3 different layers to it. The financial clock that you would reset by drafting a quarterback puts you on a more realistic timeline based on where the rest of your roster is. The conversation we were just having as we were looking at the salary cap and looking at the depth chart, it's hilarious how much this team is at square one. Mm-hmm. Cairo Santos is the 6th biggest cap hit on the entire team. The 2 biggest deals on the roster right now are Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair, both of whom legitimately might be cap casualties on any other team in the NFL. This is a blank slate. Yeah. By the time you're ready to compete, Justin Fields is going to be either in the last cheap year of his rookie deal or more likely on the 5th-year option. Mm-hmm. So if you reset that clock with a Bryce Young, whoever you just decide to draft, and you trade Justin Fields for draft capital, you get back on a more realistic timeline. I think that is probably the biggest argument for why you would do it if you're not sold on Justin Fields. I understand that you can poke holes in that. I don't really believe that, but I think that's the argument for it. Johns, as somebody who watches the building every day, is there, knows the sentiment around Justin Fields in that organization, why do you think that is not likely?
I think there's a feeling that Justin Fields, with everything he did this year, and I know a lot of his success was with his legs, but with his toughness, his leadership, being there every day after practice, throwing to Darnell Mooney, to Chase Claypool when he arrived, that he's earned like that opportunity to play with better players, better receivers, to have some investment around him, starting on the offensive line, finding him better, like maybe a true number 1 on the trade market. Like, he's earned that opportunity with everything he's done this past season.
You talk to the players, Hoge. I mean, you're there every day. What do they think about him? Like, what is the feeling around him in the locker room specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very positive. I mean, there's players, there's the obvious ones like Darnell Mooney that you hear about the stories of them inside the Walter Payton Center at 10 p.m. sometimes, just still throwing routes. I know that those two train with a lot of the same people, kind of follow the same workout habits and things like that, and they love Justin. So I definitely think that sometimes I think that part's overblown, like, if we move on from this player, it's going to rip up the locker room. But this is a case where you certainly have a lot of people scratching their head. Now, the counterpoint to that is like what you just said about the
who cares?
Who's
in the locker room?
That really matters. Right. And so Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, maybe a couple of the younger offensive linemen.
That's all they got on offense, guys.
But I also think that, you have Jaquan Brisker, who was drafted last year. You have Kyler Gordon. You have your first draft class. But I also think it's an outward message to the rest of the league. You know this guy that was the most exciting player in the NFL for stretches last year, and you watched him crawl through broken glass with the supporting cast that he had? Yeah, we're just going to kick him out the door. Well, I think that says something to other people. And when you're trying to build a culture kind of brick by brick over time, and you're in year 2, pulling the rug out from under that guy who was everything about your franchise last season, I think there's some mixed messaging going on there.
They pulled the rug a lot last year. Robert Quinn, Roquan Smith. I mean, these guys were emotional in the locker room. I get it's not the same as quarterback.
It's a good point, though.
But those guys were beloved teammates.
Yeah.
It's
a good point.
Roquan Smith was your best defensive player. Those were your 2 captains.
Okay, so let's move beyond the cultural aspects then. Why wouldn't you draft one of these quarterbacks as the number 1 overall pick, Nate, if you're not worried about what the impact on the locker room and the building is going to have to be?
And, speaking first, and what Fields did, especially getting comfortable with Luke Getsy's offense, I thought the growth we all saw as a runner, but also you could see some things clicking even with a terrible situation. I mean, I know I'm a Fields fan, but being frank about the offensive line and pass catchers, but also in this class, and if you're just grading as prospects entering the league, Fields is, I think, a clear tier above any of these guys in this class. I do like all 4 of the top guys, Levis, Richardson, Stroud, and Young, but I think when they were coming in as prospects, these guys are all kind of middle first-round grades, while Justin Fields, to me, was like a true top 5 guy. And I think that's where you have to be really kind of keep that in perspective. It's like, this guy, it's the Family Guy joke. It could be a mystery box. That could be anything. It could be a boat. And it's like that's the exact same thing. These guys could be Justin Fields, and you're also looking at size and traits, and you look at other guys like that. I think a player that I've come to compare his play style to is Daniel Jones with Justin Fields. People were talking about paying Daniel Jones $40 million. Justin Fields is already showing more potential than Daniel Jones ever has. He's finally kind of come into his own this last year with good coaching and a good situation. Weird how that works. And also now we want to Justin Fields as soon as he's shown that growth, and he has way more room for growth than a lot of quarterbacks in this league. So I think that's what you're betting on. Also, another thing, this is a kind of like one little kind of like side stat, is that if you take a quarterback at number 1, he technically is making more money than Fields is in the next 2 years. Yeah. Yes, the contract is longer for them, but he's technically making a couple more $1 million more. So that argument also kind of like, for me, is just like much ado about nothing.
The thing I get hung up on too with the rookie contract argument, which I totally understand the logic of it. And let's just be honest, Mike Tannenbaum has been one of these guys like really pushing that. We had him on our CHGO show today here at the Combine, and I said to him, I go, the thing I never hear you mention, though, is you're resetting the developmental clock too, though. You're taking, and granted, the Bears kind of wasted a year with Fields, but you took everything that Fields did show you this year, even if it's not everything you wanted. It's what Getsy did around there to make it work, and you're just like throwing that out the window. And I don't – best case scenario, Bryce Young is everything you want him to be, right? But he's still a rookie next year, and every rookie quarterback, they take a year. So, in my opinion, you're really only gaining 1 year because you still have Fields for 3 more under your control. Granted, that 5th-year option will cost you more money. It's not worth it to me to set that because, and that goes back to then, well, what did he show you this year? And whatever that was, which we all agree he got better this year, okay, he did that with nothing around him. That's impressive to me.
Here's the other argument. If you take a quarterback number 1, the number 1 pick that we're all hoping turns into 7 more picks, it's just the number 1 pick.
Yes.
So you're dropping Bryce Young onto a team that needs 3 starters along the offensive line if we're being generous. Probably another pass-catching option that could be a true number 1 receiver, and a defense that has 3 viable NFL starters.
They don't have a defensive line, Robert.
Yeah.
Literally, they need a whole
4 new guys and 4 new backups.
And if you're we've spent so much time this week on this show talking about how so many of the teams in the top 10 are in a rare position to surround a young quarterback with more help than is typically given a young quarterback drafted in the top 10. If the Bears were to use the number 1 pick on a quarterback, that would not be the case. Even if you got something for Justin Fields, I do think you'd get less than you're probably going to get for the number 1 overall pick.
Here's the question I got a couple times down here. Like, what if a Joe Burrow-like prospect was there at number 1? What if a Trevor Lawrence was there at number 1? That's a fun thing to talk about. But the Bears aren't evaluating the draft class that way. Like, what if? No, it's what if Bryce Young is the best player in best quarterback. So it's a different situation for them. What the Bears have to consider is if trading back is their best scenario because they need more than 1 piece. Like you said.
The answer is absolutely yes. Yeah. The answer is 100% yes. It was funny this week. We had a big meeting on Monday, a staff meeting. So I walk in at big meeting. I walk in at 8 a.m. and multiple people are like, "Did you see the Schefter tweet? The Bears are open and shopping the number 1 pick." I was like, "Oh, really?
Oh, wow!"
It's shocking that they would be open to shopping the number 1 pick.